In the Bible, Paul explains that everyone has two bodies, a physical body and a spiritual body. Mediums use their spiritual bodies when they act as a communication bridge between the physical and spirit worlds. As a spirit speaks, mediums hear the information using the ears of their spiritual bodies, then repeat the information to other physical people. Mediumship is synonymous with the biblical term, gifts of the Spirit. The focus of our show, Making Known the Unknown, is to provide knowledge through the use of Reverend Hewitt's mediumship and Sidney Schwartz's research. The Bible contains the history of psychic events, along with man-made doctrines created by priests centuries ago. This show will explore the untruths which the Bible entrenched into our society. By uncovering these untruths, we encourage people everywhere to think for themselves with a critical mind.
Hello, and welcome back to Making Known the Unknown. I'm your host, Tina Tarek, and with me today are my guests, Sidney Schwartz, middle school teacher from Hackensack, New Jersey, and Bible researcher. Welcome, Sidney.
Hi, Tina.
And Reverend Carl Hewitt, pastor and founder of Gifts of the Spirit Church, now in Charleston, South Carolina, and medium. Welcome, Carl.
Thank you, Tina.
Okay. Viewers, the title of today's show today is called Seeing is Believing. We've put together a series of topics that we think the thread of Seeing is Believing will pull together very well. And one of the first topics that we would like to discuss and share with you is about an event that we're all somewhat familiar with, and that event is the Last Supper. And I was informed that most of us really don't have the correct interpretation or understanding of what the Last Supper really was. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our experts, and I think we'll start with Carl Hewitt. What would you like to share with our viewers about the Last Supper?
Well, down to the ages, the true story of that event has been misunderstood. Now, number one, excuse me, over the years, myself being involved with other mediums and going to these events, seances, we call them, that's when a group of people get together to communicate with the other dimension of life. And the other dimension of life I'm talking about is the spirit world, because we have two bodies. We have the physical body and we have the spirit body. So it's the spirit people in the other dimension communicating with our spirit body. And that was not the Last Supper, regardless of what the church says. It was the last seance, the very last seance. And a lot of people don't even know to this day what the word seance means. And as I said before, it really means a gathering of spiritualist people getting together to communicate with the other dimension, and that is possible.
The French word séance means sitting.
Sitting.
That's why if you go to France and you go by a movie theater, it'll say séance, and it'll tell you what time the sittings are for the movie. So that's what the word means.
So there was no table in that room, because a seance room is usually everybody sits on cushions and they sit on the floor. And in this case, they showed a picture of a table and all the people sitting around it, because a lot of those people in those days did not even know what a seance was, and the word seance was confusing the people by saying this was the last dinner, the last meal.
Right.
So this is how that got mixed up, and it's been handed down and handed down, because there's so many people on this planet that wears a collar that they do not go out and research and find the truth to teach the people. So people are walking around in ignorance as far as this is concerned.
Now, we have some pictures. Sidney, you brought some pictures
Yes,
with you?
yes, we did.
Of the Last Supper?
Yes.
If we could show those. Now, as they're preparing those pictures to come up, and here's the first one. Did you want to discuss something about what you're seeing there? We
Well-
see Jesus holding the bread, breaking the bread,
All right.
right?
And if we could have the next one, you can see them all sitting around the table, which is a much more traditional artist conception of the Last Supper. But however, it's not historically correct because there were no tablecloths, there were no tables. They were sitting on the floor. In fact, they used to sit in a circle, and each person had their own assigned seat. So every time they met, they all sat in the same exact spot.
Now, you know what came to my mind as I was looking at this? Wasn't the actual Da Vinci's Last Supper painted some 400 years or more after the actual Last Supper?
Well, about 1,400 years afterwards, because he lived in around 1500s.
So there was a significant time lapse, and I'm guessing with artistic license, too, the artist would create something that people in the time that they painted it could relate to.
Sure, because culturally they were painting what would make sense in their own culture. So when people got together in Europe for a dinner, they sat around a table with tablecloths and all that. So it's very much, even a lot of European pictures of Bible scenes. The clothing's all wrong because they show European clothing instead of this clothing they wore in the Middle East. So a lot of times that happens where there's inaccuracies.
Very interesting.
One thing, Jesus really liked red wine, and he drank a lot of it, regardless of what the Bible thumpers say. And at the end of every seance I've ever been to, there was bread. They would break bread and then have wine. And that usually ended up as the last seance for that particular night, you see.
Okay.
So as it was taught, it was handed down from one person to another, they come up with this Last Supper.
Right,
It's not true at all.
right.
And within the Jewish tradition, like on a traditional Friday meal or holiday meal, the first thing you have is wine, and the next thing you have is bread.
Absolutely.
And that's the way the whole meal starts off.
Right, right. And of course, we've also shared with our viewers in other shows that Jesus had continued to have seances and meetings where he sat on the floor with his disciples and his students, if you want to call them that. So why would they have this be any different than any other day, except that he knew that he was going to die?
Right.
It was only a few weeks, it was only a few weeks before he went through that horrible death that this widow offered him the room upstairs where her husband used to do the pottery and store it upstairs. And she told Jesus if he would have his students go upstairs and take all of the pottery and bring it down and put it in front of the store and clean that room out, he could have it, no rent, no nothing, free of charge, because she had been following him around since her husband died, and she felt sorry for the man because he had no place to gather, and there was no chairs in there. It was just a bare room, just like we have today. I've had seance rooms. I've been to seance rooms all over the country, and there was no chairs and no tables in there. Everybody has cushions to sit on. See, so down through the ages, this whole scene has been changed.
Furthermore, since this was supposed to be connected with Passover, at a Passover Seder, technically the people aren't supposed to be sitting at a table either. You're supposed to be reclining and eating, because in ancient times, the slaves were not allowed to recline and eat. Only the free people could. So it's symbolic that you're supposed to recline even today at a Passover Seder. So they definitely wouldn't be sitting at tables and chairs for the Last Supper.
Very interesting how, when the two of you break this down and put this information together, how this really makes sense, but yet we've swallowed this interpretation of what this event was all these years and never bothered to question it, think about it, process it.
Well, it's something that the church kind of set out to do, not necessarily this specifically,
But if you go back into the Middle Ages where people couldn't read, they weren't reading the Bible, the only way they learned the Bible stories was from the pictures in the stained glass windows. So these artists that provided these pictures, they became the imprint for the way we think about things.
Right.
Because that's what we think of. We see Da Vinci's Last Supper or some of these other people who painted a certain way, and we just assume that's it.
You know, what's funny is this is kind of an aside, but it's related, and you just made me think of it, that this week my son was sharing with me how they were studying about history and how only the wealthy people could read and could write.
That's right.
And they kept the churches going, and the churches, because it was so expensive to produce Bibles back then with the process of the reproduction they had, I guess before the movable type and the Gutenberg press
they
and all
were
that.
written by hand.
There were very few of them at all
Yes.
because they were
Handwritten.
so hard to copy if they were handwritten. So there weren't any people who really read it or understood it or had it taught to them at all.
No.
So it was kept even more cloistered back then. And
Exactly.
that just made me think of that.
The very rich families wanted their children educated. They wanted them to read and write. And so the families would also push their sons into the priesthood if they possibly could. But they didn't want other people to learn how to read. And they control people's minds through mind control.
Now we have another piece that's an event in the Bible right here on the set, and it's depicted by this beautiful piece of art that is behind us here, that was painted by a local artist, Dot Botcher, who some of you may have seen her work in other shows. And maybe the two of you would like to discuss what exactly is the event and what's going on in this picture here.
Well, when you come to this picture here, Jesus was going with his 12 students, and they were going to another town, and they came through this little town. I believe it was called Shunem.
Samaria.
Samaria. And when they went through the town, the first thing he noticed was the community well, and he was very thirsty. And he told the boys, go on and get some cheese and bread and some wine and meet me here, because everybody knew where the well was. There's no way of getting lost there. And so while he was sitting by himself, because he would not let any of the boys hang around, he wanted all of them to go. He needed his space. And so while he was sitting there, closed his eyes, resting his legs, he heard somebody shuffling around the well, and he opened his eyes and he saw this woman. She had come to draw water to take back to her family. And he asked her for a drink of water because he had no way of getting that water out of that deep well. And she turned on her heels and looked at him and said, you got a lot of nerve asking me, a woman, for water. You're a man, you should be offering the water to me. And he said, woman, if I gave you water, it would be like a spring, a fountain within yourself. And he says, you would never need any more water if you take the one I have. He was referring to knowledge, not the water from the well. And she liked the way he was talking. She knew that he was not just an ordinary person. He was well educated. And as he kept talking, she got the feeling, the impression that he was a prophet, of which he was, because a prophet and a seer and an oracle, same thing, a medium. And so she, without even thinking of what she had said to him previously, she poured water in the little saucer or whatever it was, a cup, and handed it to him without thinking. And he was drinking the water, and then as he finished drinking the water she offered him, she says, now why don't you give me some of your water? And he was now he's going to trick her into telling him the truth. He said, I will give you some of the water, my water, if you fetch your husband. You see, he knew that she wasn't married. He knew that. He could see that clairvoyantly. And she says, I'm not married. He says, woman, you speak the truth, because the man you live with now, you have never married. You have lived with 4 others.
Wow.
And you've not married any of them. She got very excited here because he has started giving her a reading, telling everything about her. And she got so excited that she even forgot that he had her cup of water in his hand. And she rushed back home, leaving the pot of water and everything there, and said to the people, come to the well and listen to the prophet. He's told me everything I ever did. Well, this is the same thing as a reading that a person would get if they sat in the presence of a medium today. And I'm talking about the presence of a medium, and a genuine medium, not a fortune teller. And so this was, he was giving her a reading. For people that do not understand this, check it out yourself. He was giving this woman a reading at the well.
It was in John chapter 4.
That was my next question. Where
Yes.
do our viewers find this in the Bible?
Right, John chapter 4.
Okay, very good. John chapter 4. And when they read it, they should see pretty clearly
That's
that
right.
he is sharing information with her
Right.
that there's no other way he could know,
The
being a new person
the only
in
thing
town.
that's not spelled out in that story is the fact that when she gives him the water, he grabs a hold of her water pot. And as he's holding it, he's picking up on it through psychometry and is able to do the reading.
Ah.
That's the missing piece, missing image in that chapter.
Yeah.
So he's using one of his gifts of the Spirit,
Yes,
we call
exactly.
it, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay. So the significance is that pot
Yes.
And
was
excuse me, and throughout his life, many of his students would say, Master, how do you do this? How do you do this? And he said, they're not miracles, they're the gifts of the Spirit. That's all there is to it.
And
And he says, what you see me do, you can do. Even greater things shall you do. And he says he goes to the Father is within him, as it is with everybody else on the planet. That is your second body, the spirit body. It becomes so simple when you understand it.
But yet that interpretation is not really taught. You don't hear that.
Oh, no.
No.
You don't hear that people can do the things that he can do and then more.
Right.
He's held up on a pedestal like a god in a lot of areas.
Every church on this planet is a franchise of some leading office somewhere or other. It's all there is to it. They're franchises, and they don't want people to know the truth of the gifts of the Spirit. And this is why the gifts of the Spirit was used to name that church back in 1977 when they told me that I'm to call the church Gifts of the Spirit Church from the Bible, Corinthians chapter 12.
Well, speaking of that, of course, we have a picture on the set here that refers to or depicts the place that was so inspirational for you to name the church. And I'm going to grab this picture. It's on the floor here. I don't know if our camera will be able to pick this up, but it is at the beginnings of our show. And I just wanted to show viewers a better depiction of that. I'm trying to hold it evenly here so they can see it. I don't know if we can get a kind of a close-up on that. If I hold it here, I guess you can see it.
Explain the
Right.
picture, Sid.
You want to explain the picture, please?
That image was taken over Corinth, Greece. And Corinth was the city where St. Paul said, I will not have you ignorant of the gift of the Spirit. We were traveling there, and we were on a balcony that's overlooking Corinth Bay there. And we looked in the sky, and there, lo and behold, is the exact church logo that we have, which was the sun rays going to the right and to the left, and wider on the left than the right.
Okay.
So it was quite phenomenal for us to see our church logo up in the sky over the place that was talked about in the Bible for which the church was named.
Okay.
And
Good.
Carl was given that in a vision, the church logo, many years ago, and there it was in the sky. So it was quite phenomenal.
So the church really, I should say, one of the aspects of the church is to teach people about, in the Bible, the gifts of the
Right,
Spirit
right.
and where they appear many, many times, and how that is also considered, well, sometimes you call it psychic phenomenon,
Right.
but it's also considered different forms of mediumship, perhaps,
Yes.
as well, I suppose.
Exactly.
Remember, it was Jesus who said, I shall not have you ignorant of the gifts of the Spirit. And all my life, he's been behind all of my teachings, wanting people to understand. And yet religions does not want people to understand. And I've been practically crucified.
Right. Now,
That's
when
teach.
people hear you say that Jesus said this, they're going to say, no, Paul said it. But what they don't understand is that Paul was the medium at that point, and Jesus was speaking through the medium, just as many spirits speak through Reverend Hewitt lots of times, even on these shows.
Right.
There's times he's gotten directly into trance and the words come out, but the people see Reverend Hewitt's mouth move. They don't know it's
Right.
somebody else animating it
Right.
unless we throw in a
Right.
graphic later on to label it.
And because there wasn't any television
Right.
or camcorders back then,
That's right.
they had no way of really visualizing
Right.
that other than the written word.
Mhm.
So they kind of, so I guess the church leaders can kind of control what they think people would or would not have been seeing,
Right.
hearing, and feeling.
Mhm.
But now you are here to decipher what really was going on. Now, I guess there's another aspect or event that's appeared many, many times
Yes.
in the Bible that you wanted to shed some light on or give some clarity to.
Yes. If the control room could start running the next clip about transfiguration. The Mount of Transfiguration was a very interesting event where Jesus took his three most advanced students up into the mountain, and in the course of their discussion there, Moses and Elijah started to materialize. And hopefully the pictures will start coming on the screen. Here we go. So Jesus is there, and Moses and Elijah are on either side of them. And Peter, James, and John are on the bottom of the screen there. Now, we're showing you these because these are different interpretations of what was supposedly happened. You know, the artist's conception, as we were talking
Right,
before.
yeah.
Now, Peter was one who got very excited when he saw this. He said, "Master, it's a good thing we're here. Let us build 3 tents for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah, and one for you." And the Bible says that he didn't know what he was talking about, but he really was knowing what he was talking about.
Sure did.
Because this is a picture of Silver Bell's materialization. Moses and Elijah materialized. What you see, the medium who's sitting there in that little cabinet, that little tent, that little cubicle, that is what Peter was referring to. Here is a picture that's in Iran from the Coptic, it's in a Coptic museum in Iran, and there Jesus is in a cabinet, just like Mary Ethel Post Parrish, who was the medium in the last picture, was in the
Okay.
cabinet.
All right.
This is the only picture that I know of that shows Jesus in the cabinet at the Mount of Transfiguration. It's showing the true materialization process. And therefore, this was quite exciting for us to find this picture, because there are so many of the other ones that you saw where there's no tent, there's no cabinet available.
Now, you said it came from the Coptic
Yes.
Bible?
Yes.
What part of the country is that from?
Coptic is Egyptian.
Okay.
And they had a little bit of a different spin on Christianity for a while until the Council of Nicaea, which kind of crushed them. Well, the Coptic Church is still there, but they kind of split away from the Roman Catholic Church.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So, again, the depiction and with art really doesn't do justice to what was really going on or what was really required for a medium
Right.
to do that.
It's interesting because in the storyline it talks about these tents, which in Hebrew is a sukkah. A sukkah is a little hut that looks very, very much like the medium's cabinet that we saw there. And some of the translators just go wild with this. They call them churches. They call them historical markers. They mistranslate this verse like crazy because they don't understand the phenomena that's here. But when you understand psychic science and then read the Bible, you understand that the cabinet had to be there. And then we came across the picture that actually documented the fact that somebody knew this years ago because they drew it correctly.
It's no wonder people could come up with the different notions that they did because they never really understood the science behind it.
Right, exactly.
And that's the connection that's missing.
Yes.
In our world, it seems that we have spirituality here, we have science here. We don't see the two melding together and working together, and it seems that that's necessary at this point in
Right,
time
right.
to make sense of our world and not be taken advantage of,
Right.
brainwashed, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Okay.
See, religion has become such a mammoth business worldwide.
Yeah.
Yes, and some of them aren't doing too well of recent. I was
No.
watching the news the other day. Some of them have had to rearrange their financial status to accommodate for the legislation. Or what do we want to call it? The
The litigation.
litigation
Yes.
that's going on.
Yes.
Lack of legislation, maybe.
Maybe.
The next piece we have, because we have a few minutes
Yes.
left in the show here, which I was very excited to share, but didn't know at the time that was what we were going to do, was put it on the show, had to do with a spiritualist camp that I visited called Lilydale, which is located in the northwestern corner of New York State. And these are some pictures that I took while we were there. And, you know, I just like anybody else, I'm curious about places, and I travel and I'll take pictures and want to learn a little bit more. This is their church, very plain, you can see that. On the outside of the church that we just went by, it talked about healing masses, which I found interesting. And I guess this is the origin of the spiritualist religion is in this little, for lack of a better term, like a little township. It's very small, just a few blocks. This is also a great place outside where the people can come and pray. And you can see the beginning of that area, walking down the path to that area. It's a very open place. It's very accommodating. It's very friendly. As you can see, we're getting closer to these benches in this outside cathedral, I'll call it. And the pulpit is really just a stump of a tree that's used, which I think is beautiful. It's absolutely moving if you ever have a chance to go there. But the most interesting piece of all of this, and we will be getting to that shortly, is the actual last picture, which we're going to freeze a little bit and hold on to so we can see. That was a piece of the pet cemetery that's there. They bury their pets and have little markers and gravestones. And this is also the view looking out on the Lake Canandaigua, which they're lucky to have the camp on the lake, and it's just absolutely beautiful. It was considered, I guess, off-season when I went, so there weren't really too many people there, so I was free to take pictures. Again, just a beautiful day. And they have this, what they call cycles of truth, in places where they will come, and I'm assuming that they meditate. And this is the final picture, if we could freeze that for a few minutes, where I believe that people sit around on these stumps and they may meditate. Well, of course, when I had these pictures developed, they were all around the same time frame of day, within maybe a half hour of each other. And then this last picture came through with this hazy image on it. And I said to myself, well, that could be the sun, that could be I don't know what. And then I had asked Carl recently to tell me what he thought of this picture, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Carl. What is that?
That picture, you see, when spirit sees a person with a camera, they oftentimes try to materialize in front of the camera so it shows up, and it shows up as hazy fog or mist. I've seen it to the point that the person materializing it, you can actually see all their details.
Wow. So that was somebody who was materializing on screen.
Yes.
Right, without a cabinet, and that's why they didn't see a full body as they would when Jesus did it.
So if any of you have pictures like that, you never know. It may not be just sun or glare or what have you. And with that, because we're getting real tight on time, we'd like to run the last clip, and it will speak for itself, and then we'll bring you back to wrap up the show, and we'll take a little pause after that.
Early in the fall of 2004, this picture appeared in the Bergen Record, the local newspaper for Bergen County, New Jersey. The caption reads, "Newark Archbishop John Myers blessing the memorial to the unborn victims of abortion on Sunday morning at Our Lady of Victories Roman Catholic Church in Harrington Park." Harrington Park is a small community in the northeastern corner of Bergen County, New Jersey. This picture puzzled me. According to the Ascended Master, who calls himself the Angel Without a Name, who works through Reverend Hewitt, there is no soul present in an aborted baby. Abortions take place in the first trimester of a pregnancy. The soul does not enter into the baby until the 96th day of the pregnancy, which is in the second trimester. Therefore, what purpose would sprinkling holy water perform? There are no souls attached to this tombstone. There is absolutely nothing there. The Archbishop could sprinkle this water on any rock in the forest and have the same effect. This is simply an empty ritual created to appease a superstitious belief. After further reflection, this thought came into my mind. The Church is constantly concerned in protecting the souls of unborn babies, yet this same institution shows little concern towards souls already housed within human bodies.
This picture was published in the New London Day newspaper. It shows a priest dipping a 4-year-old girl into frigid 41-degree water as part of a religious ritual to celebrate the Epiphany. There is no concern about the tortured look upon her face as she deals with this ordeal, which borders on physical abuse. It would be much more beneficial for the church to be concerned about the quality of life for children already in this world and to protect them from all types of physical and sexual abuse.
Hello. I want all of our viewers to be aware there's a very exciting event happening I should say around February or March of 2005, and that is the publishing of the second book by Sidney and Carl that's called Crossovers. If our control room could put up the cover page of the book, which is going to be in 2 volumes.
Yes.
Then our viewers can get an idea of what it is that they're looking at, that we're talking about. And then what I'd like Sidney to do is to describe what these covers represent, and then go into what is Crossovers.
Okay. Perhaps the control room could bring the covers back online. Good. On the left-hand side there, you see an image of an angel. That's the angel without a name. He refuses to identify himself. This picture came through the gift of precipitated art. It was drawn by spirit people. Not any human hand touched that picture. The cover designer put the beige part around it in the cutout, but the actual image itself was not touched at all. And the book was a little bit too thick to be in 1 volume, so therefore we split it into 2. And on the right-hand side is the image of Crossovers, which is showing a female spirit entering into a male body in the physical world, going from leaving the spirit world, crossing over the change of dimensions there into the physical world, into a male's body. And that's what Crossovers is all about. The subtitle is The Origin of Homosexuality, and homosexuality occurs when a female soul resides in a male physical body. And this is how this came about. The way we knew about this, and we came to this information because when Reverend Hewitt was in trance, Awan, the angel without a name, told us the story of how this all started. And the story was kind of fantastic and a little hard to believe. So eventually Carl and I went to Turkey to see if we could find any kind of evidence that would corroborate what Awan said. And sure enough, at the very last second, at the very last site that we went to that would deal with that time period, which was the Hittite kingdom that lived in the present country of Turkey, we came across the same evidence that Awan said carved into a stone monument. So obviously it was quite a moving moment when we actually discovered that, yes, this was really true. I had been talking to Awan for many, many years at that point, and every time that Awan told me something, no matter how fantastic it was, I was always able to document it. But this story about the origin of homosexuality and what occurred in the Hittite kingdom was just a little bit too fantastic for me to believe, even though I knew I eventually would come across it. But I said, I have to have some hard evidence to back up what he's telling. And so we went, and I said, once I got that, I'll write the book. And sure enough, we got it.
So would you back up just a little bit here
Sure.
for me and our viewers and explain the idea of who Awan is or what Awan is?
Awan is an ascended master, which means he lives in the highest frequencies of the spirit world. He's the most advanced knowledge. You need the most advanced knowledge and spirituality to reside there. And many ascended masters touch back with people in the physical world, most times through a medium, because the medium is able to bring through the information from the ascended masters to us. In this case, the ascended master actually takes over Carl's body. Carl's spirit leaves his body, and Awan's spirit goes in and uses the vocal cords to speak to me and to whoever else is present. In this case, a lot of times Rick, there was a client, one of Reverend Hewitt's clients, Rick, was also present. He was struggling with accepting his homosexuality, and he was on the verge of committing suicide. And he came to Reverend Hewitt seeking help, and A1 intervened and said, I will help, provided that I would be present to record this, document this, because it was information that the whole world needed to know.
My goodness. So the foundation and the reason for all of this research had to do with something that Carl had received from someone in the spirit world.
Yes.
And then some of the meat of the book, without giving too much away, had to do with a reading for one of Carl's clients.
Yes.
Who happened to be gay.
Yes.
Very interesting. Now, you traveled to Turkey, you said,
Yes,
the
we
two
did.
of you,
Mm-hmm.
to verify this, to prove this.
Right. We went on, used the internet to find a tour guide. Carl, myself, and one other person went to Turkey. Obviously, since we were going that far, we wanted to see what, the regular sites. So we went to many different sites before we started to get into the Hittite period.
Right.
But we told the guide we were looking for the Hittite water sanctuaries, because A1 told us that there was a ritual where the Hittite priests that performed on little girls, and the girls were three years old, and basically what happened was that the priests had declared that women didn't have souls, that they were soulless and they were godless, and this was a way for the priests to put God back into the female. So they would take a marble phallus, which they called an idol, and they would insert it into the little girl, and often she would be screaming and bleeding, and it was a horrendous torture, worse than what we saw with that dipping of the young girl into cold water. Although that was part of the ritual. After to stop the bleeding, she was dipped in cold water, and after that, she was available for any male to use, because that was the way they set it up. They said the women's sole purpose was just to satisfy a man, and so therefore she was anyone could use her. And often, what would happen was that by the time the girl reached puberty, they would no longer be interested in her, and they would throw her out into the street, and often they would die within a year or so after that. And then they'd go back to the spirit world, and it'd become time for them to reincarnate, and we have the same experience again and again and again. And women started to feel that, I wish I could come back as a man, because this way I could escape all this. And eventually, the Ascended Masters decided to allow that to happen, and the female souls crossed over into male bodies. And because the emotion of love comes from the soul, and the soul's right here in the middle of your chest, emotion comes here, love comes from here. So the female soul was attracted to a male body, and therefore it didn't matter that the soul was in a male body.
Right.
And this is what caused the attraction to someone of the same gender. And another byproduct of all this was that because there was a female soul within the male body, you had a blending of energies, because the energy of a female is negative, not in good and bad, but as on a battery, as a polarity,
Right.
and male is positive. And since God has both positive and negative energy, a crossover tends to make a good instrument of spirit, or a good medium. Because before that time, only women were mediumistic, and because they had the negative energy which would allow the communication. But now, with the blending of positive negative energy, some of these crossovers became very strong mediums. Of course, religions didn't like the idea of the mediums, because they could bring forth information that contradicted dogmas that they created. So that's why in the Bible, for instance, there's lots of commandments saying you shouldn't go to mediums should be killed, and this and that. So it turned out that all of homophobia, the whole history of homophobia being against gay people, stemmed from the fact that they were mediumistic, and that the priests didn't want to have competition. They didn't want to have their livelihood taken away, because even in the Bible there was a struggle between the priests and the mediums. It was an economic struggle. And so to eliminate the mediums, they couldn't say, because mediums were the prophets in those days, and the prophets were the mouthpiece of God. Everybody knew that. So the priests couldn't just say, we don't want prophets anymore, because that's going against God. But since many of the prophets were homosexual, they could say, let's ban homosexuality, let's make it a capital offense, and we can kill off the mediums and kill off the homosexuals, and therefore kill off the mediums, which was their main goal. It was all a smokescreen. And that's what was discovered, you know, that's just what A1 explained, and all of this has, the book has a lot of the conversations that Rick, myself, and A1 had, and it also has historical documentation to prove exactly what A1 had to say.
Very interesting. You touched upon so many areas that right now in this world would seem like they could be helped by having a little clarity. Areas where people are being discriminated against because they're gay. Areas where people are assuming that priests do speak to a God, which they don't. Areas where there is litigation out there, like we talked about before, with respect to pedophilia and that whole origin. Issues with women still being disrespected. And it wasn't more than 70 or 80 years ago that women were able to vote. So when you talk about women or girls being born without souls, my goodness, is evolution that slow?
The book also explores the fact that so many women are so obsessed with their looks, and they're terrified of growing old, because it goes way back when they grew old, they'd be cast out. And many gay people have the same kind of reaction, that they're constantly bemoaning the fact that they're getting older, and that's because that memory is recorded in their soul, and it's just playing out for them naturally.
Right. So this narcissism we're talking about is not by accident. It all has a root. It all has a basis. The other piece that I look at, and maybe this is a stretch, is that straight men seem to be more interested in women who look younger, closer to prepubescent. If you want to look at some of the models who look like they're underdeveloped or underfed, or a combination of both surrounding us everywhere, and how that seems to be of value in the world at this time. This is very, very powerful. Carl, what would you like to share with our viewers?
Not too far from here, not too far from the studio. There's a young man that he told his folks that he was gay. And they locked him out of the house, changed all the locks. They wouldn't allow him in the house, wouldn't even allow him on the property. And the poor guy committed suicide. It was the most horrible way of committing suicide you could ever imagine. And then near Storrs College, there was another one that did the same thing. And both of these young men came to me for readings to get answers, because the psychiatrist that they went to, evidently the psychiatrist knew about my work and as a clairvoyant. They sent these two people to see me, and these two people didn't know each other, but they came to see me, and both of them committed horrible suicide. And it's just because of ignorance of the family. And we really feel that this book coming out, you know, Crossovers, will help an awful lot of people.
Wow. Wow.
And I certainly look forward to it coming out to help people understand.
Now, the book, you were talking about it coming out in February 2005, being published. And are there any plans right now with how you would like to promote the book?
Well, we are launching a website, which people, I believe, people will be able to get it there.
Okay.
Also, people will be able to get it through Amazon.com,
Okay.
from what I understand.
Okay, and there's our website on the screen. Okay,
Yes.
excellent.
There's a new website that should be up within, I would say, a month, also by the time the book comes out.
Very good.
It's end of January, beginning of February.
Okay, and also at the end of our program, we do have a phone number, an address, and an email address for our viewers, which we'll remind them about, again, when we close, as a way to contact the organization.
I would like to fill in, we only have a few seconds, right?
I think we're good on time. Go ahead.
Okay. the man that owns all the superstores down south, department stores, Henry Belk, he got in touch with me. He got my phone number from somebody in London, contacted me on his way back here to the States from his own private plane. And I had a lot of meetings at his house because he had a research center researching into psychic phenomena, mediumship. And he was saying that of all the research centers that he has on the planet, which was about 8 or 9, he found out, the researchers found out that the best mediums that they ever discovered were gay, and it made more powerful mediums, and that there was a lot of others that were not, that tried to fake it, but a lot of the public knew the good from the bad, you see what I mean? And he said that somebody needs to write a book about this, and it was from that point on that I talked with him about it, and then this guy came in by the name of, what was his name?
Rick.
Rick came in and wanted a reading. So the entity that furnishes the information to the person getting the reading wanted him to sit in the audience there along with Rick, and this is how this all came about.
You know, what I find interesting is that you were shown a vision of this place in Turkey, and knowing that you would have to validate it to a population of people that want scientific evidence, and finding the exact place that you were shown.
Exactly.
That's just enough to blow anyone's mind right there.
Exactly.
And it in a very scary way really ties everything together.
It really does.
Very, very
It
interesting.
was mind-boggling, because exactly the vision that the Spirit showed me was exactly what we found.
Okay.
Exactly. There was nothing changed in it at all. And approximately 15,000 years ago, that place was created.
Do you think, in your opinion, Carl, that more priests are gay, and this has been a safe haven for them to go to,
Well,
as far as being involved in the church?
Since I was last here on this set, in this studio, they told me something heavy. I mentioned it to him a little earlier, and he only grunted, which means keep your mouth shut.
Oh, well, not on this show. That's not what this is
Well,
about.
I'm coming out with it.
Go for it.
They told me that the religion that we were referring to was created by the pedophiles way, 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 way back. It was created by the pedophiles. And if you stop and look at all of the cases, you know, the sexual harassing and possessing, what is that word? It's coming from the pedophiles.
Wow. The abuse, neglect?
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. So that's a very hard-hitting statement. I'm not sure that
Tell
some
me
of our
about it.
viewers will be able to handle that.
Tell
but
me about it.
Well, basically, what I believe was also mentioned was that the founders of the religion we mentioned were really reincarnated from the Hittite times. So they were doing it in Hittite times, and they came back and they're doing it again. Just like many of the people that were involved in the Spanish Inquisition and killing the Muslims way back then in the Crusades are now back on the other side and are now the terrorists.
Right.
So because they're repeating the same scenario.
Because they can.
Right.
Because they can.
Yes.
Until it's exposed,
which
is what you're doing, it sounds like.
Right.
Wow. I can see people who would be very much relieved to have this information, but I can also see people who would be very much threatened.
That building that I told you that Spirit led me to down in Brazil, and how the guide wanted, see, I had to go to the men's room to urinate, and he led me into a strange building, I thought, to find this place, and which was the biggest building in the very center of the city. And so when the taxis would drive right up here like this, and I was to get out and follow him, and he brought me into the church, and I kept saying to myself, where is he? Because he doesn't understand English. What is he taking me in here for? And he took me into a place in the church, back of the altar, I cannot go any further with this, but it was an absolute mind-boggling experience.
We talk about it in the book.
Okay.
And it was
Okay.
it was a place where sexual abuse took place.
Very interesting. I mean, a sad, dark, difficult topic to talk about as it is.
Yes.
But if so much liberation can come from it
Hmm.
with knowledge,
That's true.
then I guess you've got to say it's worth it.
Hmm.
Very interesting. You brought something with you that you wanted to share with our
Yes,
viewers.
we have a clip of the Hittite monument. It's called Eflatun Pinar.
This is not an ordinary place. This was a place that the priests had built many, many, many years ago. We can't seem to find any dates dealing with this. This is when they had decided that women did not have a soul, only a man had a soul, and that God created the woman's body for the pleasures of the men, and in order for the men to use this little girl from 4 years old onward, her vagina had to be stretched. And so a ceremony was created which was called blood and water. And this was where it was done. This was one of many places it was done in this country. And the little girl was brought here, and it was a law that any woman who had a child and she came 4 years old, she had to be brought here. It was here that the three priests, a higher priest and these two others, would take the child and stretch its vagina with a marble phallus and then have sex with it. The child would bleed profusely, and the water would be just bloody. And then these two priests would penetrate this child, and that was the final part of the baptizing. From then on, this child could be used by an army, and the parents could not do anything about it because it was a law that the child was put on the world, the girl was put on the world for the pleasures of the males, and it didn't matter how old the person, old or young the person was, they could still use this little girl. And she was used up until the time she came into her first season of blood, maybe 11, 12 years old. She was cast into the street as being unclean, unwanted. Most of them died of starvation before they were 20, only to be pulled back into or sucked back into a reincarnation, another body, and be treated the same way, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. Then there came a desire within the soul of this female to be able to come back in a male body and never be treated this way. So, eventually, through what we term today as evolution, the soul came back in a male body, and that particular male became attracted to other men because the soul in the body was female. And when it came back several times, we do not know how many times, but when it came back several times in the male body, this female soul from the beginning became masculinized. And then when it decided, after a lot of the ignorance passed, when it decided to come back into a female body as it started in the first place, it was so masculinized at the time that the body it was in was now a female body, and the body was attracted to another female because the soul, instead of it being feminine as it first appeared in the first body, it has now become masculinized. And so now it's attracted to a woman, a female body. So this is what is called lesbianism. This all went on for approximately 400 years. And since this was the law of that religion at the time, there was certainly an awful lot of babies born during that 400-year period. And so this is why we have all over the world today, we have men that are sitting in women's bodies, and we have women sitting in men's bodies. It all occurred during that time. This is why so many of the people have been persecuted over the years for simply being attracted to their own sex. For truly this proves, as the spirit voices have told me, that being gay, as we use that term today, is not a choice. It's not a choice. It's a natural thing, because the soul in that man's body who is attracted to another male is a female soul. And so the soul in a woman's body who is attracted to another woman, has become masculinized. And there was never a time that women crossed over. It was that men crossed over. It was women that did it in the first place, but that was a law of the land set up by the priest. That's all there was to it. This is not a place that people would come just to get drinking water. It was specially set up for this. You can see the features over there. And you notice that all those sculptured features over there are all little children, little girls, all of them. From what the voices told me many times, and now it's becoming more clear to me, they made these phalluses, and they would force the little child to sit down on it. And usually it was far too big. It was even too big for an adult to use. And if you look closely at these old figures, the little girl at the right corner is sitting on a phallus, as well as the one in the second one from the right corner. That was an observation platform for the mothers of those little girls. And they were there. It looks as if they're down on their knees, and they're facing that, and they're also praying, because these children are screaming because of the pain that they're going through. The last thing that happens is that the priest penetrates those little children with all that blood and everything else. Then the ceremony was over. Even with this child torn inside, a man could come along and take that child right out of its mother's arms and rape it. Yet the priest set up this law to make this happen. And they're saying here that see that stone right there with the two knobs, you might say, on it? Mm-hmm. That symbolized the breast of the female. Only for the pleasures of the men.
Hello, welcome back. That was a very hard-hitting video, Sidney and Carl. Yeah. And I think it's always good to give a visual as far as the location and the actual site that you were referring to in the book. Yes. And of course, this is just a kind of a snippet of the whole trip that you took out there. I also want to let our viewers know that at this point in time, this is all that they're going to get as far as information about the book. And if they want to know more, they're going to have to keep their eyes open, log into the website, contact Amazon.com. Yes. And I also want to remind our viewers that your first book, My First Encounter with an Angel, is still available. And again, the same contact information applies at the end of the show with getting copies of this book. There are still a few more out there. Am I correct with that? Yes. Okay. And what I also wanted to do was thank my guests, Sidney Schwartz and Reverend Carl Hewitt.
Thank you, Tina. My pleasure.
And I want to thank our viewers. I don't think I do this often enough, because when you turn this show on and you just listen to it, you don't have to agree with it, you don't have to believe it, you just take the time and the risk to listen to it. You have no idea how much you're opening up your mind and your world and improving your life. Until we meet again, thank you and be well.